and welcome back to another episode of Lewwe Hear from Doc. Today's conversation goes beyond our country to the devastation of Jamaica, to memories of Hurricane Ivan, of leadership, of resilience, of strength, of hope, to our parliament, to our voters list, and to the lack of consultation on major projects. Sit back and take a listen. I am your host, Amanda Paul George, and joining me is Dr. Keith Mitchell. So, Dr. Mitchell, Jamaica has been through a rough time with this recent hurricane. As someone who has led through a national crisis yourself, what message of support would you want to send to our Jamaican brothers and sisters and to the leadership there, especially our sister party, the JLP?
Well, first of all, I mean, see that watching Jamaica through the television programs and so on, and the things that you see, it just remind me a lot of that morning I got up after Ivan struck in 2004 and saw the extent of the devastation that I saw. And I remember a certain scene which is reminiscent of that village of Mount Morris when I went up to Mount Morris. And I looked down, as you could, you had the section where you could go up like a hill. And you look down, you're seeing Happy Hill and all Molyneux and so on. And it's like when you have a matchbox and you crush it. It's the whole thing. You can see almost every house on the ground. This is what I saw in Jamaica recently and last few days watching television broadcast news about the impact on certain sections of Jamaica. So it's clear that it's going to take an enormous amount of effort on part of the people of Jamaica, the government and the leadership, and probably they're lucky that they have someone like Andrew Holness as a prime minister, and of course for the members of his team who would have to take this thing from the ashes to bring it back to where it was before, or build back better as we did in our case. It's clear that it's so. My first reaction is to remind our own party members and of course our country, our people, all of us, that when we went through our situation, because in our case, Jamaica was a portion of the country destroyed. In our case, the whole country was, except for Carriacou, which was not hit as hard, or the upper end of St. Patrick's. But they went through the devastation was quite amazing to witness and so on. So I certainly remember the help coming from our Caribbean brothers and sisters, from Jamaica to the north, to Trinidad, to the south, to Venezuela, to Cuba, to all the countries in the OECS. And I mean, this Barbados, it was enormous camaraderie and support that we all witnessed. So this is the first thing I think that we owe to our Jamaican brothers and sisters, to show that level of support, and whatever we can do to aid their effort at this point in time, because it will take the collective will of the entire Jamaican population. And I noticed something positive, which is the same thing we did when Ivan came. We and passed. We invited the opposition and all concerned citizen groups in the country, and to identify the problems as we see it, and ask for everyone to support. And we gave anyone a stake in the reconstruction effort. And this he had the ability to get support from the family and friends abroad, all over the country, and to help in the distribution of it. So we know they like to have that leverage of importance and political influence by being able to be part of the delivery. So we gave them that, because as far as we're concerned, the politics had to take a secondary position. And our job was to ensure that every single citizen can get the minimum and this, and hopefully the maximum later, in the whole effort of reconstructing the country as a whole. So I think it's important for me, as I've done before, to call on my friends in Jamaica and send a message to the Prime Minister, who is a good friend of mine, as is well known, to wish them the best and to offer prayers and our moral support and whatever material things that we can give. By the way, we have already signaled to a member of the media that us organize a telethon for a particular period, sometime early in November, sometime where we can raise funds from the nationals at all levels in the society, and as a party take initiative to help in bringing some resources, not necessarily just for cash, anything, material things that we can give. Because that's what happened when we were hit badly by Ivan. So we are asking for that initiative, and the party must be seen, because it's quite unfortunate that as a country we expect the government, just like other governments all over the Caribbean, came to our aid. We expect them to take leadership, and not a word from the present government about the sister problems with Jamaica and so on. I remember Prime Minister Manning coming up to Grenada on a private plane, and we had no electricity and wouldn't leave. It's getting dark and he still wouldn't leave. And he told me he found it hard to leave, seeing the pain that I was going through as a brother, he said. And he remember telling me, he said, "See, Keith, I'm not here as Prime Minister, I'm here as your brother, because I could see the trauma and the pain that you are going through, for the suffering that you witness among the people of your country." And similar, we saw it from Chavez in Venezuela. We saw the Prime Minister and the people of Jamaica coming forward. I remember Ralph, Kenny Anthony, all the OECS leaders all came home to me in my place in Happy Hill, because the Prime Minister residence was destroyed completely, it was flattened, and they all showed their moral and other forms of support for what was taking place in Grenada at the time. So, given our own experience, I expect us to lead and to show that same empathy that was shown to us. But it is not the NMPs in government, it's some other group in government who doesn't seem to have that empathy, that clarity of understanding of when your neighbor house is on fire, you please wet yours, because you expect that it can be you next time around. And we had our share. Jamaica is going through it, and the next year, some years from now, is somebody else. So we all, when we see things, we must assume that we have a responsibility to help our brothers and sisters. I watch the program, I see the complaint from the citizens, because no place to sleep. You could see the whole devastation, the impact, psychological, and sometimes the damage in situations like that, Amanda, is probably more pronounced emotionally and psychologically than it is the physical thing that we're seeing.
Yes.
Because the damage in the mind doesn't rebound overnight. You can get the materials and build back your house, but the damage to the psychological problem people face is far more lasting than the physical one.
Dr. Mitchell, you spoke a book. Fast forward to CRIF. They announced on October 31st that they will make a payout to Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa. But looking at that and remembering Grenada's own decision to join CRIF after Ivan, how do you reflect on that kind of economic foresight and preparedness?
Well, it's that NMP has always been one who thinks ahead, never plan just for today. We recognize when Ivan came, we realized we had nothing in place, like a serious insurance for the devastation. So we had to be begging, leaning on our friends regionally and internationally. And we did get enormous support. I remember President Bush calling me directly, and of course, and lending his support in every sense, and sending up $50 million to Grenada to help us in the reconstruction. And our friends of Britain did the same thing. All the countries around the world, some did gave bigger gifts than others, but we got enormous support. So it is clear to me that we have to understand when we see things, when we see the devastation, that we have to realize that the moral responsibility is for us to help. So we were lucky that we had the understanding after Ivan's struck, when we found out, and the Americans were the one that advised us to get involved in this institution called CRIF, where we pay the insurance up on a yearly basis, and hoping that we never had to, to count on them for any resources, but we had to take the precaution. And as it turns out, that this government came in a time when Beryl struck, not long after they came into office, and they had over $118 million, something we never had at our disposal. We had nothing. And therefore, it's sad when you see the problem that still exists in Carriacou. And there are some people, and then talking about that they're not able to help all the people, and you see most of the houses in the ground. You had $118 million. Where is the accountability for all these monies in Carriacou? Some people now saying that they're now set for life. So it seems like Beryl came to help them, not the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. So we are proud of the fact that we took that initiative, and we're proud of the fact that these monies are available. But if we are not proud of the fact that how it's used, and we have no accountability for how these monies are used, and the extent of what I'm hearing and what I saw when I visited a while ago, seeing the level of devastation still in front of our eyes. It tells you, want to know what has happened to the $118 million that they received. But all I could say is one day, some persons will have to account for many of the things that we're hearing now. If there are facts to support it, then clearly the country would have to have some accountability for those resources. So I'm proud of the fact that we initiated membership of CRIF, and that the resources came in time that we badly needed it. And therefore I'm happy to hear that Jamaica has now benefited, I think, over $70 million US, which is
70.8.
yes, which is almost 200 million or 180 something million dollars EC going forward. So I'm happy for Jamaica, and hopefully we other peoples come forward, because the level of damage in Jamaica will cost far more than that amount. So, and I know Jamaica is not a rich country with oil and other resources, so clearly they will continue to need all the help that we can give them. And as I mentioned before, I expect the Grenada and the NNP in particular will do what it can. I saw an announcement at our church on Sunday, where the churches of Grenada, Catholic churches, have now asked the membership, all our members, and the next Sunday to take a second collection just for the people of Jamaica, to send some resources down. And they made it clear they're taking all sorts of things, not just material, monetary resources, but any other material support we can give.
Doc, I know you touched a lot about Hurricane Ivan in between, but just take us back to 2004. What was that moment like for you personally? Your first thought, your first move, and how do you even begin to lead in that kind of chaos? Because it was chaotic.
Well, I think I was emotionally scarred when I got up and looked at the country. You just felt almost helpless, and it was very difficult. In fact, you had to be sort of dazed at the time, because watching around you and everything on the ground, all that you built, and remember the amount of development that took place under our government, the roads and the infrastructure and the things that we built, and to watch everything flat on the ground was kind of very difficult to accept. So it was a tough one, emotionally, psychologically, and otherwise. But within a period, we had to realize it happened and we have to pull everybody together. That's when we called on all citizens. And I gave you an experience, I think I may have mentioned it in a program before, that where I live in Happy Hill, and I came out of my house the morning after the Ivan, about 7 o'clock, and I walked up to the main road, and a lot of people were bike, because there were over 50, 60 people came into my house and were in the basement. They occupied the basement of the house because they said, well, the Prime Minister's house might be the safest place, so everybody ran into. So as I walked up to the road and in the junction there are a lot of people there because everybody come down close to where I stay. So I was chatting with people and consoling them and giving them hope and so on. And then we see a band about 60 young men, women walking, going up. So when they reached, they say, I didn't know who they were. So one of them said to me, Prime Minister, oh, we we said, we come from a Majesty prison and we're just going home. So when you're ready for us, come and get us. And I mean, and people listening there couldn't help laughing. So they identified themselves from a Majesty's prison because the prison was completely destroyed. And they said to me, we ain't giving no trouble. When you're ready for us, come for us. And and it's precisely what happened. So we had some nice prisoners, I must say, at that point in time. So we had that period. I would not want to live through another one like this because, it was difficult. But the good decision we made when we were at Mount Royal, about 11, 12 o'clock, I told the family they should go up to Happy Hill, in our house. And I would stay in Mount Royal as long as, but the hurricane was expected about 1, 2 o'clock. So I stayed up to about 12 and left there about 12 because I recognized Mount Royal as an older building. And I didn't, based on the velocity of that storm, I didn't think that Mount Royal will withstand that extent of wind. So, and it turns out I was absolutely correct because the morning afterwards I left, went back to Mount Royal and of course the SSU and other people had to be cutting trees on the road for you to pass. And when I reached Mount Royal, I saw the whole place flattened, completely flattened. And the bed I saw such a big stick in the bed, so I know if we stayed there, we would not be here today.
Doc, moving away from that, in a recent sitting, we've seen Parliament being adjourned, committees not being properly established, and dates and times change without any consultation with the opposition. How do you view these developments?
Well, this is a symptom. It's just a symptom of the overall lack of proper governance in the country. And it clearly points to lack of leadership. No one can duck. Just remember, when I was in government, almost anything that happens, keep me chill. It's not necessarily that you actually did it, but you are responsible as leader when things appear to look very chaotic. And there's no doubt that we notice that the country is running itself, like nobody's in charge. Everyone is doing whatever he or she feels that she should do. And there's clearly no guidance. And you see the parliamentary activities are now being affected by that lack of guidance and lack of leadership. Because I can't understand how you could send out papers for a parliamentary session in my 40 odd years in parliament. That has never happened. You sent it out and you have not even checked. Even the members on your side did not receive the document as you indicated that you sent. And no one knew, and you're still advancing the opening of that session of parliament. I can't believe it. So I had to visit my mom before I entered parliament, and I was on my way, and I was called by someone in parliament and said, look, there's no point coming because the session is going to be adjourned because of the chaos. And it appears that the speaker didn't seem to be on the same wavelength with the leader of government business and the leader of government and the speaker. didn't seem to be on the same wavelength with the Prime Minister, and I assume with other members of the House on the government side. So it's clear that how could you stir up in Parliament and have both parties on the government side? All right, the Speaker who was nominated by the government, we didn't oppose, but it's a Speaker chosen, initiated by the government side, and he is appearing to be arguing with the Prime Minister and vice versa, which is quite unfortunate because it shows the whole chaotic situation. No one is guiding, no one is leading this exercise. That should never happen. And they should be clear that the document wasn't sent because we communicated that we did not receive. And the leader of government business and others knew that they didn't receive the document themselves. So how do you continue to beat at the parliament and to have this give and take among members of the government side at that particular point? But it's only a clear indication, because if you're not in the country and you're out more and everything, more than you are in, you clearly cannot be in charge of what's taking place in the country. And what is sad, you look at the Ministry of Works, for example, there's no leadership because the roads is the worst it has been. I mean, you're driving along the road and the bushes are so tall that when you turn in a corner, you cannot see if another vehicle is coming. And sometimes some drivers are not as careful the way they drive. They come in with high velocity on taking the corners, and you could have serious accident with the level of the bushes that we're meeting on the side of the road right throughout the country. The potholes and the big potholes and all different, as if no one is passing those roads and so on. And then you have the situation in the St. George's Park, the city, in Grand Anse area and so on, and the business sector. The roads are in terrible shape. Most of the time because of work being done and other things, the lack of maintenance and so on. And I know this government, when we were still have the bushing and we were helping thousands of people on the road and the country was rather cleaned on a consistent basis. I know they criticize and say they don't believe in road work. Well, you not believe in road work, you'll find enormous jobs for the people. But you find no jobs. You're not cleaning the streets. So the environmental aspect of it is in serious shape. It can affect the health of the nation. And then the security, with the damages that could cause to human life and, of course, vehicles in the country. And then the fact that most of these people who normally get this road work are home without a daily bread. They can't even take care of their kids and family and other services that they need for the family survival. So a combination of security, a combination of health with the environment, and an economic, the situation of economic plight of the poor people of the country. You have a three-dimensional negative aspect to the state of play, and that's the work of the Ministry of Works. Who is the Minister of Works? And who are the people working in the Ministry of Works? And what is happening to the country? That never happened in our time. And this country was always could say that one of the reasons that I emerged as a possible candidate for Prime Minister of the country was the work done in the Ministry of Works. And not by Keith Mitchell. It was by the team that we assembled. And I was the leader. But you had a number of excellent workers in the Ministry of Works that we chose, the public servants who served and did their job appropriately, and the skilled workers around the country had given enormous support. And we had buy-in from the population as a whole. So it's not about, yes, I led it and the NNP led it, but we had to give compliment to the entire public of Grenada, Carriacou, and Martinique for the advancement that took place under the Ministry of Works during those times.
Dr. Mitchell, we've been hearing a lot of public concern about the voters' list of padding and inconsistencies. What's your take on that?
Well, if you're serious about democracy, one fundamental aspect of democracy is to make sure you obey the laws of the voting process, which means that only persons who are entitled to vote must vote. And the law is clear that if you are not here living in the country for at least a year before election, then you cannot vote, right? That's the law is very clear, and therefore I should not encourage anyone who's not living here on a permanent basis and who have no stake in what is taking place and within a year before the election, should encourage them to register. And if they do, then you should not be encouraging them to vote. So that's a worrying thing. And we're hearing of stories, enormous increase in registration. So I'm telling the NNP party that we have to put enormous importance and on the voters list, because the people in the country living under the rules for registration and voting could be against the government. But government can pad the list through persons who are not entitled to vote and end up winning an election. And it has happened in the past. It has happened in the past in Guyana, for example, when the people in Guyana voted, those who lived in the country voted for the PPP at the time. I was a young boy growing up over the years. Then when the overseas voting came in, the PNC won the election. How could that be? You're living outside. Right? And so,
What is going on
and you are not affected by the decision of the government, but you're making a decision that the people living inside must accept what you believe is best for the country. That's clearly inappropriate. I remember a number of occasions when I was prime minister and leader the opposition, in opposition, not necessarily leader. And I travel abroad and I was asked, why don't you have polling stations and people abroad, Grenadians abroad, coming to vote? And I said, there are much more people, Grenadians, living abroad than those living in Grenada. And the law is extremely clear. So while I understand that you want to participate in the process, but do you think it's fair for you to be outside in North America or in Europe or wherever you are, or in the Caribbean, not living under the decisions of the government? The people in the country makes a decision that they want the government to stay in office, but you outside decide you want change, so you want to get rid of the government. Similarly, the people in the country want the government to change, but you outside because your numbers are bigger than the numbers here. So one has to be careful. Sometimes when you speak like that, somebody says, oh, are you against Grenadians abroad? That's not clearly. That's clear not be. You cannot conclude that I'm saying something against the people. I'm talking what is naturally justice. The people in the country and the laws under which we live for voting, which is you must be in the country for a year. Just keep it in that rule. If you keep it in that rule, then I don't have a problem. So I'm just saying, let's live under the Constitution, under the laws of the land. And if you accept that, then you cannot be against me making a statement like this.
Doc, we're about to wrap up. But over your many years of leadership, what's one decision you made that people questioned at first but later proved to be the right one?
Well, there probably some decisions. I would say a number, but probably the most glaring one was the early days with the importation of stone. When we did not have, we had the European Union, and I think I mentioned that before, so I wouldn't go into details, gave us millions of euros to do road work in the country. And the timeline for the work had to be started, and we had to get disbursement based on our ability to perform. And while we had lots of stones in the country, we didn't have crusher. So we didn't have crushed stones. And so I had to take a decision before we lose the monies, which was 6 million euros. Those days a euro is almost 3.5, you're talking almost $21 million EC. So to import some stones from St. Vincent. And man, I got licks left, right, and center, and I got a nickname called Dr. Stone. Everywhere I go, Dr. Stone, Dr. Stone. And I think I regret an incident when I reached home, and my son called me Dr. Stone, what I did. So, I mean, I got licks left, right. I was probably the most unpopular politician in the country at the time. But, I remember some of my colleagues were worried about my political future, because that was early in my term in representing the party. And I had only won by 60% of the votes in 1984. And I told them, I said, I said, let me tell you all something, what you all fail to realize. We just won an election. We promised to build the country. You would lose 6 million euros. You cannot tell me that you want to lose it. You cannot tell me what you would do otherwise than what I did. But because you're afraid to take some licks for an action that you take that is absolutely correct in your head. You know, some people may not understand it, but that's what leadership is about. You do something you know is right, you face the consequences, but later on, when the benefits start to flow, people change their minds, and that's exactly what happened. Within maybe a year and a half afterwards, when the roads had been built, the same media houses used to be criticizing me and saying, "Oh, I'm finished politically for that decision." Headlining newspapers at Christmas after 2 years, Keith Mitchell is Man of the Year. You know, so the whole turnaround in the perception of people. So you have to understand what this is all about, and I would say that would be one of the most famous decision that I made that I was criticized for and had to be vilified for. And later on, people understood, as I did indicate, I thought they would. They came to terms with a decision which was a correct one.
What is one lesson life has taught you that no book or classroom ever could?
No, that one thing you have to know is your relationship with people. A book cannot tell you that. You have to. That's could come from the inner side of you. If you care about people, and if you are interested in people, and you want to get into politics, you have to know that people come first, not the other way around. And I see this I have seen in my 40-something years in politics, I've seen people come into politics with good intention and interested in developing the country first and foremost. They want to survive also for the family, but also priority. But I also seen others, and the vast majority that I have seen, that I worked with and was around in the parliament. A lot of them had to do it about themselves, their ego, and what they perceive to be the material benefits. And I think that large majority of this present group, they are in that category. I don't know if I could single out anyone among the team who's thinking of their country before. I have not seen it. Maybe some of them intended to do so, but I cannot give anyone a passing mark for what I perceive to be their selfishness that I see displayed consistently over the last 3.5 years. It's about myself. And when a minister could say that he's set for life, whether he lose or win the next election, and you don't hear anyone in the team say a word. Now, if I was in government and any one of my members make a statement like this, I would publicly say, that may be you, but I'm not in that. And I want to distance myself. And that is not putting your colleague under the bus. He puts himself under the bus by making a statement that could be alluded to all of us. And I am making it clear that's not my intention. That's not my philosophy. That's not the way I approach my present representation in politics. And therefore, I want to make it clear that you are on your own with that statement that you make. And I expect the leader would have done something, not a word, not a drum was heard, which is sad for the country going forward. And there's some who comes up, others come up and say, I've given out hundreds of thousands of cash that I didn't have a cent before. So the question is, where you get the money? Where is the Public Integrity Commission? Where are all the people who used to write the Public Integrity Commission about things at the NMP, which was false and had no case? Where are these people today? You can't hear a word from them when blatant misrepresentation of the people exists. You're not seeing it, but that's life. What we can do as a representative, and I consistently will do this before the end of my period of service, which may not be long from now, but I'm comfortable with my service in government. The fact that I prioritize the work of the people first, because everyone knows that I left lots of money, lots of material things in Washington 40 years ago. I would have been a million times had I stayed. but I'm a happier man than I probably would have been, even with much more resources. So I'm comfortable with me and I'm comfortable with service. I wasn't perfect. I made mistakes, but I certainly believe I served to the best of intention. I will continue to do so. Support my party, support the team that represent my party as we move forward. And I hope that and pray that the people of the country in the next election would vote solidly as they voted for us 3 times, 15 seats, solidly. Every single candidate of the NNP must win their seat in the next general election.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell. And before we leave, I just want to say that we sympathize with the people of Jamaica. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.